Hi, this is Brent Rhymes, CEO of WolfePak Software, and welcome to WolfePak Wednesdays, a weekly webcast series that highlights the latest developments at WolfePak. The goal of WolfePak Wednesdays is to improve communication with our customers and our prospective customers. Each week, we'll cover topics such as new product releases, issues that impact the oil and gas industry, and we'll even take some time to do a little product training. Some weeks we'll host a live Q&A session with the WolfePak Wednesday panelists. We're posting these videos on WolfePak's YouTube channel. To find us, simply go to YouTube and search for WolfePak. Once you've found us, please click on the subscribe button so that you'll get notifications each time we post a new video. And if you like a video, please click the like icon down at the bottom. And with that, we'll get started with this week's edition of WolfePak Wednesdays. Hi, and welcome back to WolfePak Wednesdays, episode 4 for June 9th, 2021. And I have joining me again, Christy Strickland. Welcome back, Christy.
Thank you.
All right, and today we're going to talk about the challenges of managing unclaimed property, also known as Escheat. And we're going to talk about the ways of automating and handling the unclaimed property process. So, Christy, why don't we start out with just exactly what is unclaimed property?
Yeah, so unclaimed property, we're talking about property that's intangible personal property. It's monies that are owed to you. Basically, you've got situations where the owner's generated activity ceases in order to respect to the property. So if you've got an owner that has interest in a well, or it could be anything. It could be payroll, it could be AP checks to vendors, but we kind of target the oil and gas industry because that's what we are. But basically, you've got situations where the operator or someone is trying to give money to someone else, and you can't find them. They don't have a correct address, or maybe they've died and you don't know who the heirs are. So that's pretty much the ballpark of unclaimed property. And so property for a particular owner can be for a specific time period, and it's also just fixed and certain obligation owed by the owner, a holder to the owner.
So like a typical unclaimed property situation is, an operator is going through their revenue cycle, they're issuing checks, and perhaps they get a rejected ACH if they're doing things electronically. If they're still sending out paper checks, they get a returned check in the mail. Can't find a royalty owner, for example. Perhaps they've moved, hopefully to Hawaii, if they've gotten enough royalty checks. And so now you have a situation where you know that you owe someone money, you're trying to pay them, you can't find them. They've either moved or, sadly, in some cases, they've passed away. And you have to do something with that money. Is that a fair, high-level description of the unclaimed property challenge?
Yeah, it could be anything like that. There's a lot of times where money is transferred through the mail, or like you said, ACH, that doesn't necessarily reach that owner, and it's outstanding in your bank rec, and so you've got to manage that somehow.
Got it. And it's not just paying owners or folks that have royalty interest. It could be even something as straightforward as a paycheck. It sounds like it could also be a credit to an accounts receivable balance. So there's several things that can generate unclaimed property events.
Right. And so there's websites out there. It wasn't too long ago that I went to those websites and I looked, and we had a check, like a refund from an electric company for $60 that we never received. And so it's always good to check those websites too. You might have some money out there, Brent.
Yeah, actually, I think I do. I've gotten a couple of emails about that. I just got to find the time to go through my own unclaimed property and claim it.
There you go.
All right. So why should an oil and gas company care about processing unclaimed property?
Well, we definitely want to help our clients, especially our clients or anybody out there, not to go through audits. I mean, oil and gas has become kind of a targeted area here lately. And so there are auditors out there just looking for ways to find those, and the states are coming in and looking for those too. And so that's one thing that we want to do is try to help you from going through those audits.
Well, I know, I think you were telling me of a story when we were getting prepared for this WolfPak Wednesday of one of our customers in Louisiana that the state showed up at their front door and said that they were out of compliance to the tune of about $150,000. And that was before you added in the state fines for the unclaimed property claim. And it sounds like the states are getting pretty aggressive in coming after these audits.
Right. It really is. And it's up to the company to keep track of those records and make sure that you know what you've sent out and what you haven't sent out, because they're going to want to see all of those. And that audit span can be anywhere up to 15 years long.
Wow. Okay. Incredible. And I believe that the customer was using our unclaimed property module and was able to quickly generate an audit compliance report and proved, I think, down to 60 cents, something like that they had actually filed and followed the proper procedures.
Yeah, by the time they got to that, the state was just like, you know what, it doesn't matter.
they're willing to spot them the 60 cents, but not the 150,000, right?
Right.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, so when we talk about, the challenges of just managing this manually, right? Just doing it with spreadsheets and reminders and calendar entries, that gets to be a bit unwieldy quick, right? Because apparently unclaimed property rules are set at the state level. So each one of the states has their own set of rules for unclaimed property procedures.
That's right. Yeah. And who wants to sit there and try to figure out 50 different states, 50 different rules, set of rules? Nobody's got time for that. We've got a lot of businesses that what you were calling a couple of weeks ago, those slash jobs, where you've got two different types of jobs and nobody has time to go back and research every state that you're involved in or where those owners live. And it takes a lot of time to do that. So WolfePak does that for you.
Got it. Yeah. No, I mean, there's entire conferences, right, around unclaimed property. These rules can be somewhat complex. They tend to change over time. Typically, whenever a state legislature meets is when those rules change. And like I said, there's entire professions that are built around this whole managing of Escheat or managing of unclaimed property.
Definitely.
Fantastic.
Suggest that the clients that are watching this video or this webinar attend the Unclaimed Property Conference, the UPPO conference, because that's where a lot of the state representatives will come in, and there's round tables and all kinds of things, and that's where we found out about changes to Wyoming, for example.
Right. Yeah. No, WolfePak, obviously, we participate in those conferences so that we can keep our software up to date as we automate this process. So I know that there's some best practices. It's not just a software issue. I mean, definitely we think automating helps this process, but there's some best practices to set up a company for properly managing unclaimed property. Would you like to take us through some of those?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. As you think about unclaimed property, you really need to break it down into just smaller chunks because it can be an overwhelming task to just one person or even a couple of people. And so when you have people helping you, it certainly makes that job a lot better. So when you're talking about your outline compliance obligations and roles and responsibility, that responsibility of the Escheat department, operations, accounting, legals, and others, you just really have to create detailed procedures for handling those unclaimed property. You've got to gather your data. You've got to securely manage it. You've got to correspond general ledger activity to that data. Due diligence and state reporting is all part of what you've got to do for those policies and procedures. The other thing is just training. If your coworkers or your employees don't know anything about unclaimed property, it's not going to help you at all. That's a large task, especially for the bigger operators where you're having operators in more than one state, and you've got owners that live all over the place. More than, when you have more people learning about or that know about unclaimed property, it's going to make your job a lot easier. The providing ongoing training is what constitutes unclaimed property and how to identify it and who's responsible for it. So again, those unclaimed property conferences or webinars like this is really good to attend. Assigning clear ownership, you want to make sure that you've got someone there that knows that that's their job, because unclaimed property can be a pretty big ordeal for you. It's easy to ignore the process if it's not on your task list. And so when you assign someone that responsibility, you can assign that or a team of people, then your organization is going to be taken care of. We also recommend getting involved with those organizations like I talked about earlier, UPPO and things like that. They offer great and ongoing education for places like that. Centralization, again, you want to talk about your process. You want to assign it to a particular place, because if you've got one group that's responsible, then you've got people that are the go-tos for that. The industry involvement, you want to make sure that you're connected with people, a good network of people, because each department or every client is going to have a different way of handling those. And sometimes you can get tips and tricks from those types of organization. And definitely technology. If it's out there, you want to use it, because we've had clients that will spend weeks and weeks trying to figure out, who's supposed to go to unclaimed, who's supposed to be escheated, what state is, how long the dormancy period is, and things like that. And so it can take a lot of time. So when you use technology, it really makes your workload a lot lighter. I've heard of clients trying to handle that unclaimed property manually through spreadsheets. And really, you really don't want to spend all that kind of stuff doing spreadsheets, because that just opens it up for human error. And so when you use technology, you can avoid all of that, especially to avoid those exposures to potential mistakes. There's definitely an increased risk of missing items when software is not used. And so there's a lot of information to manage manually. And so you want to use a good software to do that.
Well, good deal. Well, it's the technology piece that WolfePak can definitely help with. It's all about automating. That's what we're focused on, is helping the oil and gas industry automate everything that should be and can be automated. So I understand that you have a quick demonstration of some of the ways that we can help automate all of these different steps that you have to do in the unclaimed property process. So why don't I turn things over to you, and you can take us through how we can help.
All right, will do. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Good deal. All right, so our unclaimed property module lives in our bank reconciliation module. So up here at the top, you would just select your bank reconciliation. And we've got a little section down here at the bottom. Now, of course, you're going to start the year that you're reporting in. And so my data set is a couple of years old, but you would start this year as 2021. It will be important for you to fill in the bottom pieces of information, because all of that is put into the NACHA file that's reported to the state. And so once you've started your year, then you can go into the different reports. And we just lay it all out for you, very easy, step by step. And this process takes all of the legwork out for you. Now, there is some due diligence that you'll have to do on your part, but let me just show you a couple of little things here. So whenever you're looking for these particular reports, we've got a listing by due date. This is going to show you just a comparison and error report. This is basically saying you've got some owners here that some sort of information has changed, and you want to check those out before you continue the unclaimed property process or Escheat process. But this particular listing by due date, it will tell you some dates. It'll tell you the state that you've got to work on, what you've done, what you haven't done, what's past due. And so this is just a good eagle eye view of what's going on for your particular unclaimed property process.
And Christy, just to kind of go back to that other screen, so what that report is showing, and I know that part of the process of unclaimed property is that you have to send out what's called due diligence letters, right? So essentially, you have to document that you're trying to contact the person in which you owe the money to, right? And so it's actually showing you when those due diligence letters are due, because each state has different rules as to how many letters you have to send, when you have to send them. And again, when you're talking about potentially hundreds or even, hopefully not, but even thousands of potential people that you're managing, that gets really, unwieldy really quick. And what we're doing here is we're showing what's due, when's it due, and whether you've either completed it, it's coming up, or you're past due on it, correct?
Right. Yeah, that's right. Some of our other clients, before they came into using the unclaimed property module, they just had a little tickler file. And so they put little notes inside an accordion type tickler file just to help them figure out which states were due when. And so that kind of replaces that tickler file. You can come in here and see what you've got to do. And so it'll tell you exactly how many letters you've got out there to print and things like that. So it is a very helpful tool. If you're interested, go ahead.
Yeah, and I guess just another point to make, all of the rules for all of the different states are loaded within the WolfePak software. So you don't have to keep up with all the different changes for each one of the states, right? All of that's been updated. We update it every time we get a notice from a state that a rule has changed. And then when we're reminding you, we make sure that our customers are staying in compliant with that particular state.
That brings up a great point. And so in the utilities module, we do have all of those property settings, unclaimed property settings set up. And so you can see dormancy period, whether that state requires a negative report or not, whether they're a current pay state or not, and things like that. So it's really important to be able to visually see the different rules for each state. And so, like I said, there's not one person that really wants to keep up with 50 different states and 50 different rules.
No, not at all. By the way, what is a negative report? That sounds interesting.
So if you've got owners that owe you money, that becomes negative out there. And so some states require you to submit that, other states don't really care.
Very cool.
Yeah. So let's jump back over to our unclaimed properties. So some of the other reports that you'll see, you can do owner address list by state. This really helps you start that due diligence process. If you want to start trying to locate those owners, there's lots of different websites out there that help you identify where those owners are. But you can do a list by state. If you leave it blank, it will show you all of them. So I'll just kind of show you that comparison report came up again because I got out of it and came back in. But you've got the listing of those particular owners and their address that we have currently. And so you want to just make sure that that's correct. Some of the other things that you can do, here's just an owner list by state. Again, it's the same kind of data, but it looks at it a little bit different way. If you're getting ready to file for a state, you can look at a recap by state, and it will tell you how much money's sitting out there in suspense, when those due dates are. So here's your letter due date, here's your report due date, and when that payment to the state is due.
Very good.
Sometimes that helps too. But the due diligent letters, now this is a pretty nifty tool because we do have the template forms for those states. And so if I type in, just the blank, it would bring up just the regular due diligence letter. But some states are requiring specific verbiage in those particular letter templates. And so you can take our letter template and add the state at the end of it. So underscore state, Texas, TX or whatever. And you can specify that particular letter to go in with these when you're getting ready to print it out. So I'm going to just go ahead and show you what those look like. It will automatically fill in the information for that owner. And it also will tell them that they're about to be escheated and if they want that money to be able to contact you. So there's a lot of things that we can do. And again, if you have our template, you can change the verbiage a little bit, put a different state at the end of it, and it will ask you to pick that state if you want to. So lots of ways to do that. And then you can save it as PDF. You can send them out. You can email them out, whatever you want to. Some states do require you to do certified mailings too.
Very good.
So the comparison and the warnings report, again, you saw the comparison report earlier, but if there are other types of warnings, it will show up here for you to take care of. And that could be, bad address or incomplete addresses and things like that.
Very good.
And then the last part, which is the best part of all, is where WolfePak does all the legwork for you. Typically, in a manual process, you'll take the suspense from the owner that's going to be escheated, and you move it to that state's owner record. And then the revenue billing cycle would pick it up. But what the electronic file listing will do is it will create that NACHA type file and allow you to upload it into the state. And when you finalize your unclaimed property report, it will move that suspense from the owner that's been escheated to the state for you, and it will print that check out for the state during the revenue billing cycle. So all of that work is done for you, and it puts them in an unclaimed property or an unclaimed payment status. And so if it goes to a state that's a current pay state, then the next year when you file, it'll automatically pull in those owners that have already been escheated.
Very good. Well, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Christy. I appreciate you coming on and talking unclaimed property, showing how we can automate the management of unclaimed property. If folks want to find out more information, where can they go?
Well, they can go to our website. You can do a search online for the UPPO conference. They've got tons of information out there to help. And then, of course, each state, if you go to the state's website, each one of them will have an unclaimed property section that gives the rules and regulations of what they have.
All right, fantastic. Sounds like a lot of online resources. Well, that concludes this week's WolfePak Wednesday. We want to thank everyone once again for joining us. And if you get a chance and you like today's video, please be sure and click on the like icon down at the bottom of our YouTube channel. And if you haven't already, please click on the subscribe button so that you can get notified when we post new episodes of WolfePak Wednesdays. But thanks again, Christy, and thanks to everyone for joining this week's edition of WolfePak Wednesday.